All right, welcome back to the Dolphins Country podcast. And first of all, happy Halloween or belated Halloween. Obviously, it was over the weekend. To everybody out there who celebrates, for all the trick-or-treaters out there, no treats for Miami on Thursday night, which was the night before Halloween, on Halloween Eve. However, we did get a treat the following morning, on Friday morning, with the firing of Chris Grier. That was nice news. So again, did not win the game, didn't even really compete on that Thursday night football game. But ultimately, we did get a treat the following morning with the firing of Chris Grier, or the mutually parting ways of Chris Grier, whatever you want to call it. He's no longer the general manager. But before we dive in, make sure to like and subscribe at Dolphins Country Pod on both YouTube and Spotify. You can watch and listen whichever way you prefer. So let's get into it. So obviously, the game on Thursday night was terrible. Ultimately, it was a good thing because Miami did lose and they lost badly. I always say on primetime games, it's almost better to just get your teeth kicked in, because that means it probably will benefit you to make quicker changes more swiftly and quicker. Obviously, the other two primetime games we played against Buffalo and the Jets, we competed against Buffalo to the point where you're not going to fire anyone for losing by 10 against Buffalo. And then the Jets game, we just straight up won on primetime. So this is our third standalone primetime game, and we got our teeth kicked in. I mean, it was not particularly close at any point. I mean, the first half was competitive, but Miami just kept, shooting themselves in the foot. The second half, we just got absolutely routed. It was a final of 28-6. And the very next morning, the Dolphins make some changes, and it is upstairs. Chris Grier gets fired, mutually part ways. The new GM is Champ Kelly. He will take over as the acting general manager for the remainder of the season. But this does at least give Miami a chance to kind of jumpstart and get a search out for the best general managers as far as their search goes. They're going to widen their search, I'm assuming. It's the same thing as head coaches when you're gonna interview a bunch of guys for your head coaching spot. Obviously, we still have Mike Daniel as our head coach. And the reports are that his job is safe for the remainder of the season at least. So it appears that Stephen Ross is going to at least give him a shot to be the next head coach of this, to continue to be the head coach of this team heading into next year. I don't really buy it. I just think he really likes the guy and he wants to give him a fair shot. I think he's just going to let him finish the year like Adam Gase did and like Brian Flores did. But I do ultimately think he's done by the end of the year. I mean, again, his job is safe for the remainder of the year, unless the team quits on him and he loses the locker room, which right now he has not lost the locker room. So credit to him. The guys are still fighting for him. But the team is not good and we're not going anywhere. So ultimately, I don't have any problem with him staying the rest of the year. I think it's honestly, I think it's a better idea to keep him for the rest of the year, because you don't want to get that interim head coaching boost that teams always get when they fire their head coach. They bring in an interim. They go on like a random 2 or 3 game win streak. It's like, oh, the interim head coach. Then it's like, no, it's all fake. So it's probably better if you wanted to start to be bad this year, just to keep McDaniel throughout the whole year as kind of like a tank commander, if you will, and not bring in the interim, whoever it would have been. I don't know who it would have been, but to rattle off some nothing wins down the stretch. So that's a whole other ordeal. But the general manager side of it, Chris Grier is out. I mean, this is like, it was like a Christmas came early for the Dolphins, obviously. Like that game sucked, but immediately I took it in the rearview mirror. I was like, okay, I don't care anymore that we lost that game the way that we lost it, because it was beneficial to get Chris Grier out of here as soon as possible. I mean, we've been clamoring for this for years now. In Miami, Chris Grier has been here for over 20 years in the organization. He's been the general manager since 2016. It's just like, it was a bunch of nothing. I can't believe a guy with his resume had actually lasted this long anyways without being fired. So it was just way long overdue. And I get it. Stephen Ross really liked him. But finally he is gone. And it just took way too long to actually get done. I guess Stephen Ross wanted to just let it play out, let this whole regime play out and see what happens, holding on to whatever hope he had. But it was pretty clear that this team had no direction. It was a poorly built roster from the inside out. I mean, you just didn't address the offensive line. I can go back to, because this team was good 2 years ago. It was not that long ago where this team was the best record in the NFL. That was literally 2 years ago. However, the way this roster was built, it was not built like a team that was ever going to be seriously considered as a playoff threat. It was the money on the team was all skill guys. So the money on this team was directed towards receivers, corners, quarterbacks. It was running backs. It was all skill players, and there was no substance. Nothing was actually legit as far as the inside. How you build rosters, you go inside out. You build the trench play, and Chris Grier, unfortunately, does not have an eye for the position. I mean, he does not have an eye for the talent, to scout and to draft guys in the offensive line, the defensive line of the draft. He doesn't have an eye for it. It's unfortunate. The only 2 picks that he made that were legit on either side of the ball, really, were Christian Wilkins on the defense side of the ball, and then obviously Robert Hunt. I was blanking on his name. Robert Hunt, who's now in Carolina, was the only legitimate offensive lineman that he took that was actually good. The Laremy Tunsil thing just kind of fell into our laps. I mean, he was a top 3 player that had a gas mask video and dropped to 13. That was no like, oh my God, Chris Grier, what a find by him. Laremy Tunsil was like a projected top 2 pick. So that was not, regardless. Robert Hunt was a good find by him on day 2. And then Christian Wilkins getting him at pick 13 was obviously really good as well. But outside of those 2 guys, and here's the thing, they didn't keep either one. So the only 2 draft picks that Chris Grier made in his entire regime as the general manager of the Dolphins in his 9 years here as the actual general manager drafting players, he didn't keep the only 2 guys where he actually struck gold on. You know, you get Robert Hunt, you get Christian Wilkins in back-to-back drafts in 2019 and 2020, and neither of them are staying in the building past the rookie contracts. So that was just the inexcusable part of it. So the actual good substance you had, you didn't keep in the building. You decided to allocate your money towards the skill positions, which is, of course, never how you win in January. So, of course, this team obviously faltered down the stretch in December and January, like they always do, because they did not put the money in the right spots. And that ultimately falls on the general manager. Again, how did he make it this long? I have no idea. Probably has some good connections with Stephen Ross and the guys up there. But either way, it was pretty clear to anyone who has an unbiased view as this and looked at the roster from an actual, without rose-colored glasses, who's, making an actual non-biased, opinionated thing about this roster. They knew this roster was completely flawed. And it has been flawed. Even when they were a good team, record-wise, it was still a flawed roster. But enough about that. This morning, because I thought this entire podcast was going to be about Chris Grier, but this morning, the Dolphins have parted ways. They've traded Jaelan Phillips, another one of the first-round picks that Chris Grier made in 2022. They traded Jaelan Phillips to the Eagles for a 2026 third-round pick. Miami will eat pretty much his entire contract. They're going to eat about $6 million of his contract. The Eagles are going to take on, I believe, $500,000. Jaelan Phillips, by the way, was on an expiring contract, so it could very well be a rental for the Eagles. Like, they could only have him for like 9 games. But I still like the move for the Eagles here. I mean, it's a third-round pick. It's going to, if he does walk in free agency, you're going to get a compensatory pick for Jaelan Phillips. So for the Eagles, it's like there's no risk. It's all a reward for Philadelphia in this instance, because again, either he can help you go win another Super Bowl, either he can help you elevate and win another Super Bowl, or he walks and you get a 4th-round pick or a compensatory 3rd-round pick. So it's like you're moving back 10 spots in the draft, really. So it doesn't, because this is going to be a late 3rd-round pick that Philadelphia gave to Miami. However, I think it's a good move for the Dolphins as well. Everyone should be on the block right now. So for the Dolphins, you should be trading everybody for whatever you can get. And again, for a guy on an expiring contract, he will take a 3rd-round pick any day of the week. Like, I figured it'd be like a 4th and a 7th, because again, he's going to be a rental probably, unless you extend him, which I guess they certainly could do that too. But it's a guy who's still young. But again, it's an expiring contract. So if you're Miami, you take whatever you can get, because he very well could just walk for nothing. So obviously you'll just take a 3rd-round pick for him. I mean, that's better than what you're going to get for most of the other guys. I can tell you that for free. I would now, again, the reports are that the Dolphins are listening to calls for Jaylen Waddle, but that one they would probably need at least a 1st to move off of him. And you don't want to give him up for nothing. So like, he's still young and they already extended him. So that's one you want to actually keep probably. But other than that, everyone else can go. HN too. HN can stay. But Bradley Chubb, he should be getting dealt here within the next day, and the trade deadline is tomorrow. So he should be getting dealt. Rasul Douglas should be getting dealt. You just got to get whatever you can for these guys who are having like good seasons for their age. Nobody's trading for Matt Judon, but if it's possible, he should be dealt. Obviously, he's literally healthy and active for the Dolphins. So if they can get anything for him, which they're not going to, they should obviously try and trade him. Zach Sealer, I wouldn't even mind if they tried to trade him. I don't think they'll be able to do it, but I would not be opposed to seeing him leave. I don't think any of these guys should be staying. Minkah Fitzpatrick, they obviously have to be looking to move off of him. Really, the crux here is you have to make the job as easy as possible for the next general manager. Just trade away as many guys as you can, because this roster, like I mentioned, is so flawed, and it's so expensive too. You're gonna have to be eating a lot of dead cap anyways, this year and next year. Regardless, you have to eat a lot of dead cap. So just get rid of all these guys while you can. Let the next general manager, whoever it is next year, come in with a clean slate. He has a lot of picks at his disposal. Just trade however many guys you can for picks at this point in time. You got to hit the reset button and let the next general manager, whoever it is, come in here and try to not have to clean up every mess that there is. Like, just let him, build a roster the way the roster is supposed to be built, and just get picks to do it, because you're not going to do it. I mean, obviously, this is a sinking ship right now. So trade everyone you can. So I have no issues with them trading Jaelan Phillips, as much as I love Jaelan Phillips. And I have no issue for the package they got. I mean, what were we going to get for Jaelan Phillips other than a 3rd-round pick? That was probably the best offer you're going to get for a guy on an expiring contract who could be a rental. And again, you had to eat the money to do it. Like, I honestly did not think they would get a 3rd-round pick. And the only reason why they got a 3rd-round pick is because they had to eat most of his contract. which is not like a bad contract. It's a 5th-year option contract, so it's nothing crazy. But if you're the Eagles, there's only reward. There's no risk in this because, like I said, he can help you win a Super Bowl. And if he does leave and he's a rental, you're going to get a compensatory pick back for him in return. So a 3rd-round pick, you're going to be like, whatever. So if you're Howie Roseman, of course you do that. But if you're the Dolphins, of course you got to trade whatever you can right now for picks. Just like I said, make life as easy as possible for the next general manager. Overall, I think this is a positive start. It's a positive first step for the Dolphins in hitting this reset button that they should have been doing a year and a half ago. So yeah, I mean, it's a familiar spot as 2018, 2019, which again is where we just got to start moving off parts. We just got to start moving because it's clear at that point of the Dolphins regime, 2018, it was pretty obvious that team had run its course. That was the peak of the Dolphins. They had one playoff appearance and they got blown out. They tried to run it back with Cutler and then Tannehill again, and Osweiler was in there for a minute. And I was like, okay, well, can we just get the ball moving on this? Can we fast forward to the time where we just sell everybody? And we sold obviously Micah Fitzpatrick, Laramie Tunsil, all those guys, Travis Landry, everyone was out in that regime. Tannehill, obviously, we traded him for a 7th or something, whatever it was. So it was just get rid of everyone on that team because that team had run its course. We saw the peak of that team, and at this point, it's the same thing. We saw what the Tua McDaniel thing is. It was 2 playoff appearances, 2 wildcard exits. One of them was close. One of them was a blowout. And obviously, this is now a steady decline because the roster isn't very good. I mean, that's not. I'm not breaking any news here. They literally, from the team 2 years ago, they lost all their substance. They lost Robert Hunt on the offensive line. They lost Teron Armstead on the offensive line. They lost Connor Williams on the offensive line. They lost Christian Wilkins on the defensive line. They lost all their substance, and they kept all the skill guys. So, like I said, it was obviously a steady decline. They lost Jonnu Smith, who was Tua's favorite target last year, in what was an average Dolphins year at 8-9, and now they're just terrible. So, again, that's not surprising. I'm not breaking any news to anybody there as to why this team is a sinking ship, and they just need to get rid of everybody that they can. It's a good first step to get rid of Phillips, who was probably the most valuable guy you had on your defense because he is young and he's still good. And again, like I said, he's a young player and he's going to be extension eligible. So if he's good for Philadelphia, they'll probably extend him. But yeah, you have to get rid of him because he's not winning here. No one's winning here. If you're not winning here, I don't care how young you are, how productive you are. We got to get picks for you because if you're not winning here, then we have to make sure that the next regime of coaches and general managers have a shot to win because they're not winning with these guys. So again, like I said, it's a positive first step. I'll go to the other reports here because there was more reports. There's just reports trickling in for the Dolphins the last 48 hours. So I'm trying to get to all of it, but there was also reports that came out that Tua could be benched toward the end of the season, possibly after the Dolphins Week 11 bye. We play, or I believe it's a Week 12 bye because we play in Madrid Week 11. So I believe we have a bye Week 12, but I'm not completely. It's not complete. I don't have it right in front of me, but I believe it's Week 10 Buffalo, Week 11 Washington, and then our bye week. So I think our bye week is Week 12, and after Miami's Week 12 bye, it's possible they can just bench Tua and see what they have in Quinn Ewers for the last 5 games of the season. I would not mind that at all. I mean, I think that's pretty smart. I mean, why not? I don't hate that thought process. You had a draft guy in 7th round. Let's see what you have in him. He's played 1 drive, I believe, against the Browns in mop-up duty. Zach Wilson came in mop-up duty against the Falcons last week. So yeah, I mean, I don't hate the thought process there. You saw Denver do it with Russell Wilson for Jarrett Stidham 2 years ago. You saw the Raiders do it with Derek Carr, also weirdly for Jarrett Stidham, where it's you're out of the playoff race, you just start your young guy. Again, both cases were Jarrett Stidham, which is weird. But Russell Wilson, they were just all right, it's not working. Let's see what the young guy has. Derek Carr was he was the last. It was the last legs of him in Vegas. The new head coach and the new GM was all right, we're ready to move on. So let's see what we have in Jarrett Stidham. And then obviously you saw last year the Falcons did it with Kirk Cousins. They were actually in a playoff race, and they were like, we've seen enough of Kirk Cousins, and it's the first year of a 4-year deal. Let's just see what we have in Michael Penix Jr. while we're here. He's a first-round pick. This is a little different because Ewers is a 7th-round pick, but I wouldn't hate the thought process of, hey, let's see what you have. Give him a 5 or 6 year sample size of let's see what we have in him. Is he here for the long haul too? Should we just immediately draft the quarterback round 1, or do we give this guy a shot next year? It is interesting though because if it does happen, that would signal that it's likely the end of the Tua era, as we know him. Despite him kind of having to be on the roster next year. I mean, again, there's no out in this contract until 2027. I guess they could theoretically do what Atlanta did and just keep him as the most expensive backup this year. Or they could do what the Broncos did with Russell Wilson and just straight up cut him and eat a lot of dead cap. And they're gonna have to do a lot of dead cap. But again, they're gonna have to anyways. They're gonna have to eat an enormous amount of dead cap anyways, like I said, because of all the horrible restructured deals that we made with Ramsey, Tyreek, Bradley Chubb, and all those other guys. So they've made a bunch of bad restructures that they're gonna have to just keep eating dead cap as they're gonna keep kicking the can down the road, as the kids say. And then with the Tua thing, the Tua extension was obviously a massive chunk of money, and there's no out until after next year. So if they wanted to cut him now, they're going to have to eat a lot of dead cap. If they traded him, they're going to have to attach picks with it to trade him. And again, I still like Tua, so I would just keep him. Like, if they do keep him, again, it's going to be expensive. He's going to be expensive anyways, but there's no point in trading him, in my opinion. Like, you could do what Kirk Cousins did with Atlanta, keep him as an expensive backup, and then it would almost force you to draft a rookie quarterback, because then you could be like, okay, well, we have an expensive backup, but we have a rookie quarterback who's going to kind of offset that. So you have a quarterback on a rookie contract. You can kind of treat it as the way Atlanta is right now. The only reason why Atlanta can actually afford to keep Kirk Cousins is because the other quarterback they have is making nothing. He's making dirt cheap money because he's on a rookie contract. So you could just do that with Tua. You could that would force you to draft a quarterback. You'd be like, okay, we just draft a quarterback because we have this expensive backup in Tua now. Or you can still try out Tua next year and kind of let him groom the first round pick or second round pick, whatever you do at quarterback next year. But it certainly seems like if they were to bench Tua this year, it would signal that that's the end of the era with Tua. I don't know how you bench him and then put him back in. That would be a little weird. Either way, I wouldn't hate if you're eliminated. You got to see what you have in Quinn Ewers, because they're going to be eliminated from the playoffs here in about 3 weeks. I mean, they're 2-7 now. They're probably be like 2-10 or 3-9. Like, they'll be eliminated here pretty soon. And then you got to see what you have in Quinn Ewers. And I don't think that would upset anyone. Like, Tua wouldn't be upset if you got. Like, you got to see what you have if you're a young quarterback. Like, it's a 7th-round pick. You spend a 7th-round pick on him. You got to see what you have in him. And if Tua's season gets shut down because he's just not playing well, or you got to see what you have in your other quarterback, that's not uncommon. And that way you can kind of ease Tua back in. If you have to have him next year, it's not like sour grapes where you just like bench him for poor play and it's like, okay, we're trading you now or we're cutting you. You don't have to do that, I don't think. Or you could do that and eat a bunch of dead cap, which they have to anyway. So there's really no wrong way to go about it. I personally, if it was up to me, I would, give Ewers about 4 or 5 games, see what he has. If he's not any good, whatever, that's fine. You're not going to lose sleep over it. I would keep Tua unless you can actually trade him and not have to eat a ton of money in trading him, which you probably have to anyways. But I would try to keep him, and then I would probably draft the quarterback round 1. And at that point, you can figure out what you do, because by this time next year, and really at any time of the year, guys need quarterbacks. I mean, teams are going to need quarterbacks. Obviously, Tua's contract is insane, so people weren't going to want to trade for it. Similarly, why people can't trade for Kirk Cousins, because his contract is so insane. Atlanta will have to eat a bunch of it, and they're just not willing to do that. I don't know if Miami's willing to do it or not, but either way, I would probably just try and keep Tua, because I don't think that he's really immovable at this point, and I don't want to cut him and eat a bunch of dead cap. I don't want to do that. But I think the Dolphins are fine at doing that. I really do. I think that they're probably okay with it because they have to anyways. But I would probably keep Tua and draft a rookie quarterback. And at that point, you have a quarterback in Tua who's had success before, and he could possibly help out the young kid wherever it is before you obviously have an out after next season. Then you could obviously move Tua with no issues at all. But right now, I'd feel like you'd be moving off of them at the worst possible time. Either way, it's up to them. But that's all for this podcast. We kind of hit all the stops there with the GM firing, mutual ways, whatever it is, what do you want to call it. Chris Grier is finally gone, so that's positive news. The Dolphins are selling at the deadline, which is positive news. I know Jaelan Phillips is a fan favorite. I love Jaelan Phillips, but I mean, it was time. I don't know I don't know what fans are holding on to. We're 2-7 for God's sakes. So none of these guys are doing anything that would help us win games. So why not just move off of all of them? Tua could be getting benched. Obviously, I love watching Tua play, but I wouldn't hate that thought process either. So right now, all this is pretty positive. Despite us being 2-7. I think even Mike McDaniel's job being safe is positive, because I think that means we're not going to win any games. It's not like we get an interim head coaching boost. So that all this is positive news right now for the Dolphins, which is weird considering they are a 2-5 football team in a terrible state of football right now. With that being said, we'll be back after Sunday to talk about Bills Dolphins. If guys are still on the team at this point, we might not even have Bradley Chubb for that game, or whoever else, Minka, Matthew. I don't know. I mean, who knows at this point? But it's all in flux. But right now, I think this is a good first step for the Dolphins moving forward, as far as retooling this whole thing and hit the reset button. And then obviously you had the Jaelan Phillips departure this morning. Catch everybody up on that. There's probably going to be more stuff that happens as I'm posting this podcast, because of course there is. The deadline is tomorrow, I believe. I believe it's Wednesday tomorrow, or tomorrow's Tuesday. I don't even know. I'm losing track of the days. So we'll see what happens there. But until next time, go Fins.